Hello, Wanderer, and welcome to your next Just Another Apocalypse story, The Last Brew. If you enjoy the story, please consider clicking the like button. It helps the channel grow. Okay, now, on to The Last Brew. The espresso machine always sounded like it was choking on its own breath, like a sleep apnea patient with no CPAP. If it was going to give up the ghost, then I wish it would just do it instead of hanging on day after day, week after week. But Alice, the owner of Being There Brewed That, always said, just give it some love and it will keep on brewing. Giving a half-broken machine love was like telling me to stay with my cheating boyfriend and hoping it would just get better. Nope. Not gonna happen this side of the morning. It hissed with a final sigh, like it knew what I was thinking. I poured the final ingredients into 2 cups and turned toward the busy lobby. 2 oak lattes for the hillside hikers, I shouted, voice half hoarse from the rush. I placed the cups at the pickup counter and moved to help the next customer. The bell above the door hadn't stopped ringing in over an hour. Between the smell of espresso, wet leaves, and pumpkin syrup, the air inside the coffee shop was thick enough to chew. Yippee. Don't get me wrong, normally I liked mornings like this. The rhythm, the chatter, the faces I knew by heart. Mrs. Murray, the retired art teacher who always tipped extra change. Rachel and Sylvia, the hiking couple from Fresno who'd post our latte art on Instagram like they discovered the place. The mountain air outside, always sharp, almost holy, filtering through the open door when the fog lifted. But that morning, I was really not feeling it. Mike was hustling beside me, wiry, inked forearms, hair sticking to his forehead, calling out drinks, juggling cups. He moved like a guy who'd been living on caffeine since birth. The 2 openers, who were supposed to be here both, texted sick at dawn. Exact same phrasing. Food poisoning. I'd laughed at first, assuming hangovers. Now I just felt uneasy. It was the last week of October, and the town was packed for the Halloween festival. Leaf preppers, ghost hunters, families in matching flannel, all pretending it was the simple, safe kind of small town that still existed in postcards. That illusion was part of the charm. But lately, the mountains didn't look as peaceful to me. They loomed. Maybe that was just me projecting. 2 weeks ago, I'd finally ended things with Aaron. Or he'd ended them with me, depending on who you asked. We'd been together almost 3 years, long enough that I thought we'd be shopping for furniture together soon. Instead, he'd started sleeping with his manager at the ski lodge. I found out when someone tagged me in a photo of them at the brewery, his arm around the other guy, my old flannel still on his back. Since then, I'd been swearing off dating entirely, trying to focus, finish my night courses, maybe save enough to apply to the state college by spring. A clean slate, no drama, no distractions, just work, school, and maybe a future. But as I stood behind the counter that morning, wrist aching from tapping espresso and eyes burning from lack of sleep, it all felt like a treadmill, a loop I couldn't get off. "Josh, you good?" Mike shouted over the steamer. "Yeah," I said, though it came out flat. "Just thinking." He grinned. "Don't do that. It's bad for business." I smiled despite myself, but my stomach was in knots. Not from the rush, from something else, something I couldn't name. The air outside had changed that morning. The fog that clung to the streets hadn't burned off with the sunrise like it usually did. It just sat there, thick and gray, curling around the streetlights even after 8 a.m. The tourists thought it was atmospheric. I thought it felt like the mountain was holding its breath. "2 mochas," Mike called. I slid them onto the counter, wiped my hands, and glanced at the door just as it opened again. A cold gust rushed in, cutting through the coffee heat. The woman in the doorway looked wrong immediately. Not drunk, not high, just wrong. Her eyes flicked from side to side like she couldn't remember where she was. Her hand gripped the frame, knuckles white. Her other arm was just hanging there, limp. "Ma'am," I said, stepping out from behind the counter. "Hey, you okay?" She didn't answer. Her chest heaved like she'd been running miles uphill. A few customers turned in their seats, murmuring. The bell above the door gave a half-hearted jingle as it swung shut behind her. She took one more step inside and then collapsed, face first into the tile. The sound was wet and final. Bone against floor. People gasped. A mug shattered somewhere behind me. I rushed forward before my brain could tell me not to. Hey, don't move, okay?" The smell hit me first. Copper and rotten. Something sweet, like spoiled fruit. Her skin was cold under my fingertips. "Call 911, I yelled. Mike was already grabbing the phone. A tourist in a fleece vest stood up, filming with his phone like an idiot. Then the woman moved. Her head twisted towards me slowly, too slowly. Her eyes, God, I'll never forget them. Cloudy, veined with gray. Her lips pulled back from her teeth, and she made a sound that didn't belong in a human throat. A low, choking growl. "Josh, back up!" Mike shouted. I stumbled to my feet just as she lunged. Her fingers clawed at the air where my arm had been a second earlier. Her face hit the floor again, but she was already pushing herself up, bones popping under her skin. Officer Harris, a regular, always came in for a black coffee before his shift, was already moving. Big guy, steady hands. He rushed over, grabbed her from behind, and tried to pin her down. "Ma'am, stay down. You're hurt." She bucked against him with strength that didn't make sense. The growl turned into a snarl, her head whipping back, teeth bared. "Get out!" Harris barked at the cafe. "Everyone, out, now!" People muttered in alarm. Some scrambled for the door. I just sat there, stunned, as the two of them struggled. She twisted with unnatural strength, snapping. Then she bit him, right through the fabric of his sleeve. Harris roared, slammed her into a table. Something cracked, her skull maybe, and she went limp. Blood trickled down his arm. "Oh, fuck," he hissed, clutching the wound. She bit me, God damn it!" Mike was yelling for an ambulance. Someone was crying by the window. My heartbeat was so loud I could feel it in my teeth. Harris slumped into a chair, breathing heavily. "She's out cold," he said, looking at her body sprawled on the floor. "Probably high on something. Jesus Christ!" "You need a hospital," I said quickly, but with as much compassion as I could to keep him calm. He nodded, breath heavy. Yeah, thanks." His voice, deep and booming normally, was getting weaker, quieter. Then he started shaking in waves, and his face went gray. Then he closed his eyes and coughed, a chest-deep hack that sent dark blood splattering across the tabletop in my sleeve. I instinctively backed up, dropping the towel I held to his wounded arm. Before I could move to pick the towel to reapply it, he fainted and fell from the chair. The sound when he hit the floor was not a thud, not even a groan, just a soft collapse, like something shutting down. "Officer Harris?" I said, kneeling beside him. "Hey, can you hear me?" His skin was hot. His pulse, if there was one, fluttered too fast to count. The veins on his neck had gone a dark purplish black under his skin. His breath was just a bubbling, gurgling wheeze. "Josh," Mike whispered. He was still on the phone with 911. "They're sending someone. 10 minutes, maybe." 10 minutes? I said with barely contained panic. He's not breathing right." The dispatcher's voice crackled faintly through the receiver.
"Stay with the patient. Keep pressure on the wound."
I reached out and grabbed the towel and turned to his arm, but there was no wound anymore, or not really. The skin around the bite had turned gray, stiff, like it had been dead for years. "What the hell?" I whispered to myself. And then Harris abruptly stopped shaking and went still. Too still. "No! Officer Harris! Joe!" I leaned in, shaking him. He needed to stay conscious. "Joe!" His eyes shot open. I could see that his pupils were huge as saucers, their blackness trying to swallow the brown. Growing at the edges of his iris, there was the same cloudy film I'd seen on that woman, like frost rapidly spreading over winter glass. He inhaled suddenly, and his spine jerked sharply. The sound of air dragging into him didn't sound like a breath. It was a wet, broken growl that bubbled beneath his throat and chest. "Mike," I didn't get to finish. Harris's hand shot out, fingers curling around my wrist with impossible strength. I screamed, stumbling backward. He pulled himself upright in one motion, his neck cracking as it turned toward me. His mouth opened, blood still dripping from his lips, and an unnaturally deep, low growl crawled up from somewhere deep inside him. He wasn't human anymore. "Jesus Christ!" Mike shouted, throwing the phone aside. The cafe exploded into chaos. The people who had done their best to stay calm and out of the way ran for the door, knocking over chairs, screaming. The smell of spilled pumpkin-spiced coffee mixed with blood and panic. The tourists from Fresno were crying, frozen in place. The retired art teacher was praying under her breath. Harris, his cold hand locked on my arm, lunged at me with teeth snapping. I grabbed the only thing near me, a steel milk pitcher, and swung. It connected with his temple, but he barely flinched. He just kept coming, his teeth snapping inches away from my face. Mike tackled him from the side, knocking me to the floor and sending both of them crashing into the pastry case. Glass shattered, cupcakes, blood, and glass shards raining everywhere. For a moment, I thought they were both dead, but Mike got up slowly, panting, and looked past me. "Get out!" he yelled to the remaining people of the shop. "Run! Now!" I heard the doorbell ring like a Vegas slot machine as they finally listened and ran. I got up and shuffled over to Mike, grabbed his arm, and yanked him away from the ruined display. He was dazed, but Harris was still moving. dragging himself through the broken glass and ruined pastries by a bloody hand. He was trying to turn himself around and continue his attack. We stepped away, and I started to say something when I saw out of the corner of my eye the woman on the ground, the one who had started this, twitch like a broken doll with a fading battery. First, her leg jerked. Then her hand, with its broken fingers spasmed, fingers flailing. "Oh, shit," Mike said softly. Then she slowly pushed herself up, her neck bent at an angle only owls should be able to pull off. "Mike," I whispered, trying not to draw her attention. "Oh, fuck," he said. As he said that, a noise came from the far corner of the shop. A tourist was softly crying and trying to gather her things. The broken woman finally stood, and her bloody head turned from us to the crying woman. Mike and I moved at once to head off the thing that had once been human, but she was fast, too fast. Her broken mouth opened in a silent scream that became a deep, resonating growl as she raced at the woman who tried to flee. The woman didn't even have time to react as they hit the corner walls and fell to the floor together, knocking over tables and chairs. Blood and screams filled that end of the ruined shop as Mike and I came to a halt. There was so much blood. Then the struggle stopped abruptly, and we could hear a wet, snapping sound. I will never get that sound out of my head. I ran, Mike behind me, not away from danger, not yet. We ran to the counter, grabbing the first thing that looked like a weapon, the heavy iron espresso tamper. My hands shook so bad that I almost dropped it. Mike, meanwhile, grabbed the fire extinguisher and made a couple of practice swings before looking at me. "We gotta go, Josh." I turned back towards the lobby and saw that a few others hadn't run. Instead, they hid behind upturned tables, paralyzed with fear. "We can't leave them," I hissed. "We couldn't just leave people." The broken woman, or whatever she was now, stopped her chewing and lifted her head, cocking it once again at an odd angle. Her mouth was glistened red and radiated a smell of metallic rot. On the opposite side of the lobby, Harris slowly stood, wobbly and bloody. "Fuck. He shouldn't be walking," I said in a low, trembling tone. "Yeah," Mike agreed. "No shit." Sirens suddenly sounded loud from beyond the windows and breaking fog and began to fade into the distance. Harris's jaw hung slack for a moment, wheezing and dripping blood. He moved toward the windows, breath whistling through his teeth. He ran into the window and then tried to claw with his bloody hands to get out. I finally really looked out the front windows. Outside, through the persistent mountain fog, I could see figures. Neighbors, tourists. Oh, God. Costumed kids, still holding their parents' hands, all staring at the shop. All bloody and broken. One woman opened her jaw and let out an unholy growling sound as her hand reached out towards us. The mob of figures started moving faster and faster until some of them, not all, were running toward the bean, towards us. "Fuck! Back door!" Mike yelled. "Come on!" We sprinted for the kitchen. Behind us, the sound of the front windows breaking was like a gunshot. I could hear the spray of glass, and it rained down upon the lobby floor and those still trying to hide. Someone screamed, and more glass shattered. Someone hit the counter, snarling. I didn't look back as we sprinted from the kitchen. The smell of warm bread and fresh pastries temporarily overcoming the sick blood and rot from the lobby. I saw a mop and grabbed it as we ran out the back door and into the alley. The alley outside was gray with fog. Trash cans tipped over, something dripping from the dumpster that looked too thick to be water. Here the smell of bleach and mildew hit hard, but could not cover the growing smell of rot and death. We slammed the metal door, locked it, and started moving the dumpster to barricade it. Mike grabbed my shoulder once the dumpster was in place. "Josh, we have to move." "I know," I said. My voice sounded small, far away. "But where?" Before he could answer, something banged against the back door from the inside, hard enough to make it shudder against the dumpster. Once, twice, then a muffled growl filled the space behind that door. A third slam, and the metal began to buckle outward. Mike raised the extinguisher like a bat. Fucking hell! The door was slammed again and again, as if his words had renewed the thing's determination. There was another slam, and this time a crack split the door frame, and the dumpster jerked. I pocketed the tamper and cracked the mop handle by leaning it against the dumpster and stomping on it. It took 3 tries, but then there was a loud snap, and the mop head broke off. More urgent slams at the door further cracked the frame. "Run," I murmured through clenched teeth. Mike grabbed the fire extinguisher he had put down when we moved the dumpster, and we bolted away from the shop. The end of the alley and the street beyond was still shrouded in fog. It was like the mountain wanted to erase the town and the horror unfolding in it. We slowed and tried not to stumble over trash as we moved out of the alley and onto Main Street. Behind us, the banging on the back door had stopped. Inside the shop, Harris and the woman, the first one, were more than likely tearing through everything, hunting anyone left. When I heard it, the cafe bell rang faintly. A hollow echo carried on the mist. A warning. Something wicked was on the hunt. We ran down Main Street. Halloween decorations twisted in the fog, orange lights flickering like fireflies gone mad. Storefronts looked normal enough at first glance. A pumpkin in the window, a welcome fall sign in another, cobwebs draped over mannequins in still another. But between the flickering streetlights, I could see movement. Shifting shadows that didn't quite walk right. Many were people I recognized, faces from our cafe, the grocery store, the library. Their mouths to a one, gaped, eyes clouded. Some growled before they lunged at whoever passed too close. A scream split the air. "Josh!" Mike yanked me around a corner. I blinked through the fog. A group of tourists, 3 kids, their parents behind them, had been cornered by 2 figures. One parent hit the pavement face first. The other clawed at their children's arms, trying to drag them to safety. But the figures moved faster than humanly possible. I vomited a little in my mouth, but didn't stop. "Mike, we have to." A man suddenly came out of the fog and lunged at us, teeth bared, skin gray, like he'd been dug out of a grave. Mike swung the fire extinguisher, cracking the man across the back. He stumbled and fell, giving us just enough space for us to slip past, running. The further we got from the coffee shop, the more obvious it was that the town was falling apart. Some shops and apartments had hastily installed boards over windows, but it had done no good. The boards were ripped off, and the people torn into with claws and teeth. Cars were abandoned in the middle of the streets, doors open, engines still warm. Fog clung to everything. When it did break for a moment, the mountain peaks loomed, silent witnesses watching us like they knew what was coming. "Where do we go?" I gasped, chest tight when we found a corner to catch our breath. "The college," Mike panted. "It's at the top of the hill. People always go there for shelter. Maybe they're—" A low, wet growl cut him off. I froze. Through the fog, a figure emerged, slow at first, then faster, then all at once sprinting towards us, a woman, familiar, too familiar. Her face, her eyes, her everything. My heart froze. It was Mrs. Anderson, one of our regulars. She ordered a black coffee every morning, small. Never any sugar. And always smiling warmly. Now she was a nightmare. Limbs jerking, mouth open in a silent scream, arms reaching for us. I moved without thinking. I took the wooden mop handle and rammed the jagged end into her eye. The eye popped as the wood went through it and into her brain. I was pushed back slightly by the force of her running. The body jerked, and then it crumpled to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. "Josh, fuck," Mike said softly. I yanked my weapon out of her skull, turned and pushed Mike into motion. "Move!" We dove into an alley between the diner and the hardware store. Trash cans toppled, spilling plastic bags that smelled like rotting fruit. A figure clawed at the brick behind us. A child's scream echoed from somewhere too close. We made it to the corner. The street was worse. People everywhere, scrambling, snarling, biting. Their skin mottled in a kaleidoscope of browns, reds, and gray. Their clothes were torn, blood on hands, faces, and nearby surfaces. I recognized half of them. The dentist's wife, Maud. The high school librarian, Mrs. Fuller. Mr. Caldwell, a kind retiree who always asked me how my night classes were going. "Oh, God," I whispered through a cracking voice. Mike gripped my shoulder. "We can't stop. Keep moving." We got moving again, sprinting down the street, past the souvenir shop with its smiling pumpkins in the windows. Decorations looked obscene now, bright orange faces grinning through blood and fog. A shape stumbled in front of us. A teenage boy, shaking, eyes blank. I hesitated, thinking he might be hurt. Then his mouth opened in a soundless scream, and he lunged. Mike swung the extinguisher. It hit with a dull, wet crack. The boy dropped, twitching. Mike stared down at him, chest heaving. Jesus Christ. "Don't look," I said. "Keep moving." We turned onto Ridgeway Street, the one that led up toward the college. The fog was even thicker there, clinging to the treetops like smoke. The streetlights flickered, painting the world in orange and gray. As we ran, the weight of it all hit me. I'd just been making cappuccinos an hour ago, planning how to pay off tuition, thinking about Aaron, thinking about the next semester. I'd been so sure life was moving forward, and now the whole world was tilting backward, collapsing in on itself. At the top of the hill, we stopped to catch our breath. From there, we could see the town spread out below us, or what was left of it. Fires burned in clusters. Cars lay abandoned. Some crashed into storefronts. The fog moved through the streets like it had a mind of its own, hiding and revealing horrors in flashes. And there were so many of them. Dozens, maybe hundreds, staggering through the smoke and fog, the infected, the growlers, what else could I call them, tearing into anything that moved. "Mike," I whispered. "Look." He didn't answer. He was staring at something. Down the hill, the cafe was barely visible through the fog, just a faint orange glow, and in that glow, figures moved, dozens of them. They were coming uphill, towards us. "Run," Mike said. "Now!" We sprinted again, my lungs burning, my legs screaming. Every street looked like the same in the fog. Every sound made me flinch. Somewhere behind us, a gunshot cracked, then two, then silence. We turned a corner near the school playground. 2 kids were there, huddling against a fence, crying. Their faces were smeared with dirt and blood. "Hey," I said, rushing toward them. "It's okay. Come with us." One of them looked up, a boy, 8, maybe 10 years old. He opened his mouth to answer. Then the girl next to him jerked. Her head snapped sideways as if yanked by invisible strings. Blood sprayed across his shirt. Something had grabbed her, dragged her screaming into the fog. Mike lunged after her, swinging the extinguisher wildly, but it was no use. She was gone. The boy screamed for her. I pulled him back, trying to get him to move, but he clung to the fence, shaking, screaming her name. "Mike, we have to go." He turned and froze. From the mist behind me came a chorus of growls. Not one, not two, a dozen, maybe more. The boy stopped screaming and let go of the fence as shapes moved in the fog. I grabbed Mike's arm, yanking him towards the school gates. We ran through the courtyard, the boy between us, stumbling but not fighting us anymore. We came to a gate and tried the latch. It was locked by a discreet chain. "Shit!" Mike cursed, slamming the extinguisher against the chain. I turned. The fog rippled. Shadows flickered within it, like movement underwater. The growlers drew steadily closer. Then one of them burst through. It was Harris, or what was left of him. His face was shredded, one eye gone, jaw hanging open. His arm dangled at a broken angle, but he moved fast, faster than anything in his state should. "Josh!" My hand that held the mop handle was also being clung to by the boy, so I reached into my pocket and raised the tamping tool and swung it as hard as I could. It connected with his skull. He stumbled but didn't stop. I swung again, screaming, until the metal handle bent in my hand. He fell, twitching. "Come on!" Mike shouted. The gate gave way with a metallic shriek. We pushed through and slammed it behind us, re-wrapping the chains around it and jamming a thin chair leg through the chain, pinning it. For a moment, there was silence. The boy sobbed quietly, his voice barely a whisper. Mike sat on the pavement shaking, hands red and trembling. I leaned against the fence, staring through the fog at what used to be our town. A church bell rang insistently somewhere in the distance. 5 long, hollow tones. Then silence. The sound carried through the fog like a funeral dirge. "We can't stay here," I said finally, once I was calm enough to think. Mike looked up. "Where do we go?" I stared at the dark tree line behind the campus. The mountain rising behind it, jagged against the fog, and the thought of Aaron and his betrayal flashed in my mind. "Up," I said evenly. "Into the mountains. We find a cabin, a ranger station, something." Mike nodded weakly. "And if there's nothing?" I didn't answer. The boy sniffled beside me. I put a hand on his shoulder, tried to smile. Hey, we're in this together. What's your name?" The boy wiped a tear from his face. "Ben." "Hi, Ben," I said. "I'm Josh. This is Mike. We work at the coffee shop downtown. Do you know the one?" He nodded. Are your parents—" I didn't have to finish that sentence. He was trying hard to hold back tears. "I'm so sorry, Ben. Look, we are getting out of town and away from the danger roaming the streets," I said. "We're going to go up into the woods and find someplace safe and figure out what to do next. We will do everything we can to protect you, I promise, but I need you to listen to us so we can all be safe." He nodded again and wiped his eyes. But even as I stood back up, I wasn't sure either Mike or I could protect anyone, but I'd be damned if I was going to leave a kid out in this horror alone. Behind the fog, the growl started again, louder this time, dozens of them. Mike met my eyes. "They're following." I nodded. My hand shook as I adjusted my grip on the mop handle. I still held the bloody tamper. I grabbed a flyer off the fence and used it to clean as best I could, and then knelt down and gave it to Ben. "Here, Ben, I want you to use this against anyone who attacks you," I said softly. "You hit them in the head or eyes and then run away if you can. You've seen what these things can do. Be careful of the blood. Don't get any in your mouth or eyes. When we find water, I want us all to clean ourselves and our weapons." Ben held it and shook his head again. "Okay, Josh. Thank you." The fog rolled thicker around us, swallowing the streetlights, the buildings, everything but the faint glow of the mountain head. "Come on," I whispered. We started walking, 3 shadows in the gray, toward the dark slope where the town ended and the wilderness began. Behind us, the church bell rang out a series of insistent rings one last time and stopped, and the growlers answered in kind. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep more stories like this coming. If you have any suggestions for future stories, please put them in the comments. Until next time, Wanderer, stay safe and aware, help those you can, and be the hope the world needs.